Yo, remember that time Avatar had a back alley thug mug a man at knife point and somehow swung us around to finding that mugger sweet and endearing? Remember when Aang got sent to jail and met just the absolute nicest prisoners who gave him great relationship advice? Remember that time our plucky crew smuggled a migrant family over the US-Mexican border and the show essentially endorsed siding with illegal immigration? This show's got a spicy relationship with criminality. There are countless examples of the series going well out of its way to place their sympathies firmly with criminals. And I'm not even talking about the explicit political crimes, but the normal, everyday domestic ones. Like, come on. It has at minimum 4 episodes that conclude that shamelessly lying, stealing, and scamming people is a barrel of fun, so strap in. We're gonna talk about Avatar's surprisingly radical messages on law breaking. First, let's establish what the heck I even mean by crime. For this video, we're gonna keep it simple. Crime is breaking rules that are enforced by an authority. Easy enough. I'm gonna add 2 caveats though. 1, I'm more interested in how characters' actions read to the audience as crime, regardless of nitpicking what is and isn't technically illegal within their world. Honestly, you could even argue Avatar is a pre-legal society, but that is not the point. The point is that their actions resemble and can be recognized by the audience as crime. The pirates may never have said that you aren't allowed to steal merchandise, but I think we can take that as a given. Second, we're not talking about all types of crime. This video is solely interested in petty crime, low-stakes crime done by individuals. Think burglaries, poor people crime. So we're not talking about white-collar crime, corruption, or political terrorism. We on the same page? Great, so let's jump into it. Be honest, the first thing that came to your mind when you saw this video was the Waterbending Scroll. As a quick recap for everyone, Katara stumbles into a pirate shop and finds a rare waterbending scroll for sale that she wants bad. Katara is insecure that Aang has surpassed her in waterbending, and she thinks the scroll might be just the thing she needs to get the leg up on him. Unfortunately, the scroll is way outside of her budget. So what's a gal to do? She steals it, of course! Now, there's an argument that the scroll is a cultural relic of her people, or another argument, one that Katara half-heartedly makes, that stealing it is necessary for Aang's waterbending training. But I want to be clear. The story absolutely does not suggest that this is the real reason she stole it. She stole it because she wanted it, and thought she could get away with it. And hey, she was right. She does get away with it. The narrative lets her off scot-free after dealing with the pirates. They get really cheeky about it too.
Stealing is wrong, unless it's from pirates.
I think even basic media literacy makes it obvious the show is being facetious, that them being pirates is what made all the difference. But all doubt gets removed when they revisit the topic, in the spiritual successor to this episode,
The Runaway.
Here the opening crime is very similar to the Waterbending Scroll. The gang needs money, so they dip their toes in by scamming a scammer. That dude probably didn't get the money he has fair and square, so there's no ethical problem here, right? So it would seem. Except, the rest of the episode features a glorious montage of them scamming dozens and dozens of people we have every reason to believe are not crooks. My favorite's gotta be when they play dead to extort some random nobleman for hush money. That dude's just minding his own business. Absolute shameless hustle. You love to see it. And once again, the narrative lets them off the hook, with at best a slap on the wrist, and a half-hearted excuse that doesn't hold up. The show, in fact, frequently likes to offer surface-level excuses for dubious actions. But that's what they are, excuses. Excuses that do not hold up well under scrutiny. So, I want you to stop listening to the words that they're saying to justify these things, and start listening to what the series is demonstratively showing, what kids are going to pick up on. And in my measure, what the series is showing is that petty crime is cool, good, and great fun with friends.
A wanted poster! That's so great!
It's not to say anything goes, or the show has no limits or moral principles. It doesn't support punching down at people more needy than you, for instance, and it's front of the line to condemn abusing institutional power over people. But the narrative is consistently clear that there's no shame in breaking the law itself, even if it's just for your own frivolous, short-term happiness. Be a selfish little trash panda. Steal that perfume. Join that fight club. Destroy those cabbages. The show won't narc on you. You don't gotta let money and laws stand in the way of you having a good life. This is honestly an extremely radical take. Our political apparatus is obsessed with condemning and policing the actions of the poor to meet their respectability standards. Making sure that they're only spending money on essentials. Making sure things are done through the proper channels. Looking for a reason to withdraw sympathy. You're only allowed to be sympathetic while breaking the law in narrow circumstances when you have no other option. But the show refuses to legitimize the assumption that poor people should follow rules like that in the first place. And the assumption that you have any right to judge them for it. Especially when the people they're ostensibly harming aren't actually much worse for wear due to their crimes. There's an active refusal to problematize the behavior of those without. That those on the bottom of society owe it to take the high road for the abstract social good. There's no pearl clutching that maybe the rich boy the gang scams is actually a really sweet guy. That's not where the show places its sympathies and priorities. No, the show rests its sympathies with the muggers of the world, the destitute. Not the bureaucrats, not the judges, but the immigrants. Not the people holding the levers of power, but those existing beholden to them. It doesn't expect people on the back foot to take the moral high ground, or valorize doing so. And in achieving this, the show normalizes casual criminal behavior as not a big deal. The series is very relaxed about all sorts of dubious actions. Flirting to manipulate people, extorting strangers for information, being an absolute terror to a bunch of bullies is funny, actually. It doesn't feel the need to justify these things or have them warrant correction. The humor helps the message go down smooth. And the message is that policing the ethical cleanliness of those with the least power just honestly isn't worth your time. It's fine. I'd go so far as to say it's not even being neutral. It's actively minimizing the potential harm of petty crime, which is just really refreshing, because contrary to what media tells you, your local shoplifters aren't the real evils that need to be fought. Up until now, I've been pretty glib about the actual arguments around lawbreaking, because I don't think that's really the point. Still, the show does have some reoccurring ideas on the subject. Avatar as a franchise is deeply critical of the legitimacy of law and legal institutions, full stop. No judicial body is ever portrayed positively, in either series. Law is something that should be approached with a deep skepticism, particularly towards who benefits from it. And the series repeatedly shows that laws often exist towards maintaining an inequitable status quo. Practically every major society we meet in the series demonstrates this. The Fire Nation is obvious, but also the Daili's cultural authority, the Northern Water Tribe's institutionalized sexism, even the Airbenders. The single time we see air nomads have a hierarchical decision-making process is to forcefully separate a 12-year-old kid from their guardian. There are exceptions, but if law is brought up positively, it's exclusively in small, tight-knit communities, smaller tribes and settlements that operate on the consent of the governed and a social contract. These are the places the series believes rules actually service a common good. You could argue that's one of the final theses of Legend of Korra. But beyond that, laws are primarily a vehicle of oppression and inequity. And never, not once, is law shown as an effective tool to stop abuse of power by authority. In fact, if anything, they seem to enable it. Further, law often doesn't meaningfully exist for the rich and privileged, and for everyone else,
if I just gave away tickets willy-nilly to anyone, there would be no more order. And you know what that means. No more civilization!
There's an ongoing point made, especially in the original series, to demythologize legal and social institutions. Avatar institutions are never inherently just, moral, and wise. None are beyond being challenged or corrupt or even fundamentally unfair. The series finds worshipping at the foot of institutions at best misguided and at worst disturbing. Which does lead us back to what I think the show is trying to accomplish here, and how it seeks to combat this mindset. Why delegitimize rule-making institutions? Is there any actual potential from all of this? Luckily for us, they spell it out pretty clearly in one of their absolute boldest episodes. One episode that aspires for something greater. The episode that climaxes the overarching themes around resistance, standing up to institutional power, and the inherent right to stand up and fight back for people's needs and freedom. That's right. Okay, level with me here. Let me tell you why the headband rules. So, in the headband, Aang and the audience get a front row look into how the Fire Nation upholds their empire at home. The kids pledge allegiance to their nation and government every day. Their books are full of revisionist history meant to sanitize their political atrocities. Every message the kiddies hear from every direction tells them that their nation and institutional power more broadly is inherently, unquestioningly legitimate. What the Fire Nation does is instill in their population a reverence for law and order. So, the kids are surrounded by strict teachers, and implicitly taught that these institutions have the right to decide what is and isn't acceptable conduct. And what those institutions decide is that the only acceptable actions are ones that don't threaten their system and the distribution of power. This confines people's imagination. They are propagandized to see them as natural, without questioning whose interests those rules effectively protect. Because again, even when the rules seem like they service everyone, the practical implication is that they exist to harm those without privilege, and to create people compliant with empire. What could even begin to crack their unquestioned respect for authority? Well, breaking the law is as good a start as any. There is potential in crime as an avenue towards politically radicalizing people, as we can see in the end of the episode, where the kids, on their own, take direct action to undermine their institutions. Their troublemaking engenders solidarity with Aang, and a bravery to put their own neck on the line against the no longer hypothetical consequences of breaking the law. It's changed them. And this is where the show connects its messaging about having fun into some dangerous talk. When you're living in an empire, encouraging a flagrant disregard for laws, norms, and institutions is good, actually. And getting a taste of freedom unburdened by those laws is healthy for your own political imagination. What's legal is not the same thing as what's ethical. And when you're so deep that it becomes invisible to you, breaking law, any law, is a step towards killing that cop in your head. Even in the name of upholding institutions, as far as this franchise is concerned, anyone in power worth respecting is very familiar with and comfortable breaking laws. Good institutions in Avatar are founded by people willing to challenge the legitimacy of institutions. Not everyone can get away with breaking the law, though. Being able to break laws is itself, ironically, a kind of privilege. But nonetheless, doing crime opens the door to a lot of questions. I was pretty dismissive about the "it's okay to steal from pirates" line. But let's actually humor the implications of that. Why should the pirates get to sell the Waterbending Scroll? Just because he owns it? What right does that confer to him? He's not even using it. Is there some inherent respect of business being done in a marketplace? Why are marketplaces worth your respect? Why is it wrong to steal? Did the apparent owners themselves acquire it through a form of theft? Why should you respect having a worse life because you don't have the right papers and documents? Why shouldn't you get to dance and sing how you want to? Are these things really a threat to the social order? Has that assumption been proven? And who does that assumption serve? The show doesn't try to answer these questions for you. All it has is an invitation. You want to have some fun?